You are now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast.
Welcome back to the Talk Your Jits podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about jiu-jitsu. I'm your host, Lamar Smith, and today's guest is a black belt who owns Mack Training Academy located in Hazen, North Dakota. Ladies and gentlemen, Joey Mack.
Hello, everybody.
How's it going, sir?
Man, it's good. It's good. A lot of good stuff going on. I'm busy, but I'm sure you know how that goes, especially if you got a podcast and jiu-jitsu and all the other things you got going on in your life.
Busy, man. Busy. But first and foremost, man, I would like to, thank you for coming and taking time out to do an episode with me. Greatly appreciate it.
I appreciate you having me. I'm super excited for this. I'm very pumped.
Awesome, man. Well, let's get it rolling, man. If you want to formally introduce yourself again, by all means, and let's hear about your jiu-jitsu journey.
Okay. So again, I'm Joey Mack. I got my black belt in 2020 from Amal Easton, outside of Easton Training Academy in the Denver metro area. Amal is a black belt under Henzo Gracie, who just got his coral belt, and then the lineage from there. I've had kind of a wide array of jiu-jitsu and just martial arts experience. I would call myself kind of not quite what's that term that's usually negative, creante or something.
Creante.
Yeah. There's jokes every once in a while because in Easton in Denver is it's a huge set of schools. It's not just one academy. So Amal's main school's in Boulder, and then Elliot Marshall is out of Denver, and then they've got like 7 other schools now, I think, within the Denver metro area, plus all their other black belts that have traveled outside of that. But like the actual Easton Academy school is comprised of about, I think, 9 academies now at this point. So it's a big network of schools. And I was kind of on that note of the creante, right? I was the guy who and it was allowed. I would go train in Boulder. I'd train in Denver. I trained in Arvada. I jumped all over the place. Wherever there was somebody who had something to teach me, I went. So, and that's kind of just been my journey in general, as far as I'm very open to learning. I know I'm not quite as far as the old school. Like, I'm loyal to my instructors, but I'm one that I believe everybody can teach you something about jiu-jitsu or martial arts in general.
Yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that.
And so the background of how it all came to, because I actually moved to Colorado to get my black belt to train under Amal Easton. And so I started out in a little powerlifting gym here in Hazen, North Dakota, which is my hometown. That would have been probably a senior in high school. I was training with a mentor of mine that he was in the military, so he had some very watered form of jiu-jitsu grappling experience. He had boxing experience, and then he also had some experience from law enforcement in Oakland. And so basically I was like, can you teach me how to box? And it just kind of, we went from there. We got books. We got those Gracie books and a Muay Thai book. And that's how I started in high school. And learning from books was definitely experience. I actually just posted on my Instagram. I found 2 of the old books that we used to look at. And so I posted those on there for people to see. And, but anyways, so then from there, I went to Fargo to get an engineering degree. So I have a mechanical engineering degree, but I probably spent more time training jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai while I was there than I did doing school, And so,
I believe it.
Yeah. And so 4 years into it, 4 or 5 years, I got my purple belt. Well, once I graduated, and then it was like, well, where do I go from here? And I was totally a small town guy who wasn't going to go and leave North Dakota. And by the time through jiu-jitsu and then some various other things within martial arts, I was like, well, why don't I just go to the source? Why don't I go to Colorado and train under my instructor's instructor? So the school academy I was at was Fargo BJJ. And then he was under Amal. And then after I left and I got my purple belt, and then I left for Colorado. And I mean, if I was even more ambitious and I would have known more back then, I didn't really know as much. I would have probably even just said, let's go even further and just go to Henzo's Academy in New York. And I probably would have moved to New York. But
all right.
Colorado was a good fit in that regard. So I went out and I moved there, got a job, and man, I was about an hour and a half away from the actual Boulder Academy. So there was one of the black belts under them all that I trained at his academy during the week. And then on the weekends, I traveled at least 2 to 3 days a week, like Friday, Saturday.
Oh, wow.
Go down, train with those guys and get in as much as I could. And then eventually I did end up getting into the Denver Metro and training mainly out of Denver and Boulder. So that was, with that, I trained, I mean, I was the guy who during college, I think it was like 2-a-days plus weight training, plus striking. And then by the time I was kind of around that brown belt, I had started training with the Elevation Fight team out of Denver. So I've really wide experience as far as it goes.
Right.
And then a lot of things to talk about, but the last piece that I find interesting within the whole lineage of things and how things formed. So I actually also have an instructorship in Muay Thai, and that came from an instructor of mine in the Fargo area, John Collins, and he has his instructor is Arjan Chai Sirasut. I don't know if you've ever heard the name or are familiar at all.
No, unfortunately not.
But he's actually who brought Muay Thai to the U.S. And so I'm under him through my instructor. I went and tested for Chai in person. And so the funniest part that ties all this in is Amal Easton. I don't know if you're familiar with him at all, but I mean, either way, he actually started in Muay Thai under Chai. And I didn't know that until way later, until I think I was a brown belt by the time I actually figured that out. So it's just funny.
Wow.
Everybody kind of knows everybody at a certain point. I mean, everybody can kind of tie back to the same couple of people for the most part, is for what I've experienced. It all, branches down. So small world. And that's why I'm super pumped to be on this podcast.
Yeah. Small world indeed, man. So, so when did you get hooked? Like, when did jiu-jitsu really just took over for you?
Man, probably just immediately when we started doing it from the books. And it wasn't what it is when you're in a formal academy. We're talking like we'd look at a picture and you'd be like, I think that's what he's doing, because this was right around when YouTube was starting. So there wasn't a lot of content that I knew. And so you started to see some videos, and that was more after I started, but it was mainly like, look at the picture and like, oh, this looks like what they're doing. And then we do it. And I remember accidentally popping a couple shoulders, I kind of that early stage before there was some control and understanding. You just got guys that were just rolling around and grabbing each other from the pictures and going, trying to take care of each other, but just silly stuff happens because there wasn't anybody to lead the way. It was us just going from a book. And then that changed once I went to a formal academy. But where I was hooked was from the books, because even though it was what I would call scrappy and we just figured what we could do, it was amazing how well it worked. I'm sure like a lot of people, I think, get into martial arts because of being bullied, picked on, whatever, want some confidence. I was definitely one of those type of people. And man, like my buddies who would wrestling, right? You got your wrestling buddies. So they had some grappling experience. They were ready to talk smack. And we were training, and I'd only been training for like 2 months out of books. And they came in to come try it out with us, right? Because we'd talk them into it, like, come check it out. And man, just throttle them. And that sold it for me, right? It worked. It worked. And then once that was the hook. And I trained all summer. I actually, it was the only sport I quit. I was in high school track. It was March, and my mentor could only train on Saturdays, and track meets were on Saturdays, and it was between track or martial arts. And I was like, sorry. So that's the only sport I've ever quit, and I wouldn't go back ever. ever.
Never ever.
So we trained through the summer, and then August came around, and he looked it up on the internet. He's like, martial arts academies in Fargo, and he found the one, and then in Fargo BJJ, and then we just went from there. He's like, go check it out, and I was like, okay, I'll do it, and then that was that.
Nice. So how was that transition from from what you were self-taught to like actually joining the school?
I think the hardest part was I felt like I was competent-ish and wanted to progress and have the instructor trust me. And looking back, I mean, there's nothing that he should have done really differently, right? Like, trust the process. I don't know if you've heard people say that, but right, just trust the process, especially in the beginning stages. I mean, as you get to purple belt, the process is kind of your own responsibility.
Yeah.
But, I got there and I was hungry, and I'm huge on asking questions, and that hasn't changed. And I just absorbed whatever I could. I was that white belt who's like, okay, they get you here. He's showing a technique, and you're like, how do I get out of this? Right? I was that white belt, and I'm still that white belt, for sure.
I know, right? Oh, we're all that white belt at heart, right?
Yeah.
We're just a little bit more experienced.
For sure.
But so with your school, Mack Training Academy, how long have you had your school?
So we moved back mid 2020 when everything was going on with COVID. And so I don't even know if I have a formal start date. I'd have to like look at some documents or look at pictures. Because basically, as soon as I got back, I grabbed the mentor who started with me, actually has now become my student. He's been training with me since I got back. Basically, privates during that COVID was almost every day. We just would do stuff. And so he's been promoted to blue belt, and he's in his 50s. So he's hungry, and he's got a goal to be a black belt someday. And the initial teacher has now become the student, and it's a cool little cycle to see between the two. But I don't really have a formal start date. It all started with buddies like, hey, I just want to train, just come hang out with me. I'll teach you for free. I don't really care, right? And so anybody that took advantage got basically free lessons from a black belt just to train. And so I had somebody, so I was teaching and staying very absorbed into it. And then I started getting a couple people who were like, hey, I'd be interested in that. And that's where, as far as my time, the value of my time and how much free time I have to give away, between a wife and 2 kids and dogs and businesses and all sorts of stuff, I was like, well, I can't just teach these people for free. And so I started looking at what can I do from like a private lesson standpoint. And that's how that started. So I just started saying, hey, it was a gentleman and his 3 sons. And so that's basically how Mack Training Academy started. Was he wanted privates, and we started training them, and then it turned into more people, and then it turned into, well, let's just have a formal class. And it's only part-time right now. I'm in a very small town area. So it's kind of what I don't know if I'd call it a beta test. We've really been starting to grow now. But it's mainly a part-time school. I do work full-time as an engineer, but I'm looking at transitioning further out of that. So toughest part is population. So small town. And when I say small, what area are you in exactly?
Detroit.
Oh yeah. So I'm in a town of like 3,000 people. You're talking like a county of like maybe 8 or 10,000 people.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's wild. So, okay.
Yeah. So, but I've been really increasing numbers. Things have been starting to go since I would say, let's call it 2021 when I started. I'm starting to see more students. I'm getting into like the 35, 40 range for people for how small a town it is. That's not bad,
That's not bad at all.
Yeah. And with attrition rates and losses, you lose people through jiu-jitsu, just life and injuries and whatever. But a lot of people who are with us have basically just been sticking with us. And then things have kind of comes to shove with some different stuff. And there's a very hungry blue belt that he opened his own spot in a town about an hour away from me. And so I have an affiliate. that
Oh wow.
that I travel to monthly, and then he comes to see me, and I get him a curriculum, and have been learning and building from there. And I'm looking at opening a full-time academy in a larger city called Bismarck, which is the state capital of North Dakota, which is about an hour from me as well. And so, yeah, lots of different things. Probably not your normal path that most people do when they start an academy, but I'm just grabbing whatever I can and going with it.
It's a fast moving work in progress though.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, you're talking in the span of 3 years. That's pretty awesome, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah, so I've opened it up to a couple other academies that I know I have maybe one or two that might be interested. Not academies; they're almost more like clubs. But having somebody as far as some additional affiliates, I've opened that up to some more people, groups, and then I still do a lot of privates, and then like I said, yeah, looking what a full-time academy would look like. So for now, kind of my mid-range goal or plan is a full-time academy in Bismarck. My schedule, I actually only do 2 classes a week, and they're back-to-back on Tuesdays. I have 1 kids and 1 adults, and then everything else is private lessons from there, just again from the numbers from my area. And my plan is to keep this in place. I would come still teach on a Tuesday night, and then I would just teach the other nights in the other academy. And then as things grow, plan on getting to the Dickinson Academy more. And yeah, it's a lot. It's awesome though.
Yeah, man. It sounds awesome. Like I'm just playing it in my head, like dude, just balancing, like you said, marriage and kids and businesses and work, and I'm in that same boat. I'm married, got 2 kids, I work full time, I do this every night, so and I still try to keep up on training and competing. So
Yeah.
it's a lot of moving parts, man. But it's all jiu-jitsu though, so I guess it's fine.
How old are your kids?
7 and 3. Yeah, 7 and 3. My daughter just turned 3 earlier this month.
Okay, awesome.
So,
do they do jiu-jitsu?
My oldest does. She does. My 7-year-old, she trains. I can't wait to get my third one, my 3-year-old in there. Maybe one day, but she's a little hyperactive. She's a little bit on she's on the spectrum, so she's not like. She'll probably go in and see the other kids and start playing. So we give a little bit more time before she starts.
Cool.
Yeah,
go ahead.
No, I would say we all train. I train, my daughter train, my wife trains. So
okay.
Yeah, it's fun times. Fun times.
Talking about kids on a spectrum, I actually had a group private that I ended up doing. It was a 5-year-old and his 4 or 3-year-old brother, more so he had a partner, but the 5-year-old was autistic. And you want to talk about a learning curve on teaching one just young, right? Really young. And his grandma brought him to me because he had behavioral problems. He was pulled from his family. So he's with his grandma. And so getting him in there and being able to focus in his energies and also focus in his learning style was super unique. And then this is where it's a small world. My blue belt had a buddy who came to visit, and they came up and did a private with me to train. And he was autistic. His buddy came up and was autistic. And man, talk about giving me some enlightening tips for how he thinks and how he thought I could help apply it to a kid. And man, there were some awesome tips that this kid was noticeably different after probably 8 to 12 weeks of doing private lessons with me. And he unfortunately stopped because I think him and his brother started doing a little hockey, or maybe just his brother did. I don't know if he was able to do hockey, but man, I'd love to get him back in and see where he's progressed since then. Cause there's he came from an abusive home. There's a lot of behavioral issues, and seeing the difference jiu-jitsu did in his life, the respect, the ability to I shouldn't quite say manage his emotions, but be able to kind of deal with it during a 1 hour class with me.
Mm-hmm.
The touch between people, right? Because when you're doing jujitsu, some kids that are autistic, it's very difficult to have that physical space or touch. Things can be, it's all over.
Just hypersensitive to some senses.
Yeah, and we had maybe 2 days of classes where he kind of broke down, and we just had to work through it and work from it and bring it back. And it was, I think I almost learned more than he probably did. He started, being 5. I try to give little kids credit, right? They can only absorb so much, but man, he started being able to basically do the warm up and doing moves, and it's more play at that point. It's more, hey, show me the guard, let me see it. Yeah, grab him with your leg. And the difference in his life was so cool. So I hope to see more of that. And I think for a lot of people, I don't know if you've had any autistic people on your show or anything, but the guy that I trained with had some super cool insights. One of the biggest one was, he told me sometimes they can be not looking at you, which for most of us is where we want eye contact. Pay attention, watch the technique, right? They don't have to be looking at you. The best one he's like, just give him something to hold. Just give him something that, like, he has to focus on this, and he can hold this and pay attention to you. It's like he was able to do multiple channels at once. And so I had like a lacrosse ball, and I just like, hey, hold this. And it was impressive how well he just took to it. He'd grab it and then he'd pay attention to me. And we just had to find stuff like that. So,
and and that just goes back to what my instructor says, because I taught today, so he's like, I'll be in later, and he was saying, like, I'll just come in and learn with you guys. And he was like, yeah, believe it or not, black belts can learn from their students or learn from other people. And that's just a prime example there, because you being an instructor is one thing, but you're teaching a kid is another, and then on top of that, they're on the spectrum. So it's like, you're not used to it. So how do you handle situations like that? But yeah, just being able to take the time out to learn it, learn how to do it. And like I said, the kid did a complete 180 when it came to his behavior and stuff. So that's pretty awesome, man. Awesome indeed.
Yeah, there's so many things I just want to talk about. You brought up so much stuff, but with learning from anybody. So one of my best stories of this, because I believe you can be a white belt and I'll learn something from you. And sometimes that's what not to do, right? It's like, don't do that here. But there was a white belt at one of Amal's classes that I had taken, and he did this it was like a funky half guard sweep where he wrapped his leg over the top of my thigh from the outside with the outside of his leg, and then did this like bump over. And I was like, man, that was slick. What did you do there? And Amal was watching, and he comes over and he's like, oh yeah, I remember when, and I wish I could remember the other guy's name, but there was a MMA fight where somebody did that to Andre Galvao. And I can always, if I look it up, I eventually can find it. But he's like, yeah, there was this guy did that to Andre Galvao in his MMA fight. And then Amal comes over after I had asked them that question and shows us like a series off of that sweep. And you know how that goes with instructions, like sometimes they forget more than we know, right? He wouldn't have remembered anything like that to show me unless it just popped in his head after seeing him show it to me. And it turned into this 3-part series that he's like, yeah, check this out. You can do this, this, and this. And so I learned a whole new technique series from a white belt because I was willing to ask a question. I mean, obviously I'm all showing the techniques, but that's prime for me.
Yeah. But I usually like if I have to teach class and it's like I don't necessarily like think of a lesson plan for the day, I'll either go off of what we did like the previous day or the previous week, or I'll just be like, hey, what do you guys want to know? Like, what are you struggling with? Like, what techniques are you having problems with? And they'll be like, oh, can you do XYZ? And I'm like, all right, show me what you know, and then we'll fix it, and then we'll rep it a couple times, and they'll just go across the room. And yeah, there's been so many times where they'll see something, and they'll be like, hey, is it possible if someone put their arm here, or if they put this here, can you do this? And it's like, okay, well, let's see. And say, well, dang, even I didn't see that. That's pretty dope. And then we'll work that, and just everyone can teach and everyone can learn. I feel
That's my biggest hesitation, because I'm only 31, so I'm still in
Mhm.
competitive type age, and I still got that in there. And so
Mhm.
my biggest hesitation when we moved back and doing the academy was, I don't want to be the teacher. I want to focus on improving myself and still being the student. And one of my mentors, Foster Bailey, he always told me, he's like, man, you'll learn more from teaching. And I was always like, no, I won't. I'll just come and I'll ask questions and I'll absorb from all these experts. And he wasn't wrong. Since I've started teaching, I feel like my jujitsu, at least comprehension, has exploded, because now I don't only have to understand it for myself, I have to understand it for everybody else in the room and be able to explain it to people who learn in different styles, learn in different ways, communicate differently. And so now, instead of knowing it one way, I need to know it 4 more ways. And I have to be able to convey that to them and communicate it.
Yeah.
That's the other piece is,
Yeah.
how do you, like, between children and adults, even adults don't always know what you're talking about. But when you say, hey, pivot, a little kid might not know what a pivot means, right? So you either have to find a way to tell them that or show them that. And that, in a less kiddie version, has to be shown to adults too, because it's kind of the same thing. You just don't know what you don't know.
Right. But what helps me a lot when it came to teaching was kids class. Kids class has been a tremendous help when it came to me teaching, because it's like, okay, I have to practice patience, because their attention span is like 2 seconds. So then if I take a technique, I have to be able to break it down to a point where they can understand every single section of it. And in turn, it's like, okay, well, that helps me see a lot more. And then I have to teach it to adult, and it's like, man, I can't get XYZ right. Okay, like what part are you messing up on? And then just fix it and be able to adjust it from there. So I besides having an awesome instructor, but yeah, just teaching kids class has just definitely been a big help for myself personally.
Absolutely. It's crazy how much I've had to figure out how to explain how to hip out to people. Right? Like, for me, I'm just like, get on your shoulder, bridge your hips up, get your head going forward and your butt going back. You should end in an L shape, right? That's, if I usually break it down, that's my simple version. But for those people who like start kicking and flailing their feet, or like drag their shoulder all over the place, or almost roll over under their belly, I mean, just random things where you're like, okay, how can I explain this to you? So like, my pivot on your shoulder obviously is not clicking. So how can I make this click for you? And between kids and even adults, I mean, I think, honestly, sometimes I think the adults struggle with that one more than the kids do. But it does. It just changes your comprehension level, because now it's like those 6 details that I think are simple are not so simple. We need some more. So
for sure. But so do you compete?
The last time I competed was, I believe, February of, was it 19? When did COVID actually hit? I don't even remember anymore. Was it 19 or 20?
20. Well, it was like the end of, it was like October-esque, like October of like 2019.
Okay.
Because around that time, and then the shutdown happened in March.
Okay, so I think it was February of 2020 then, because was it before that? Ah, man, all this jiu-jitsu just starts to be a blur. It was just prior to COVID. It was a Fight to Win Pro event, and I had won by decision, I believe. And
something like that.
Yeah, yep. And so I I always joke with my wife about this. So my wife's a D1 track athlete, and she always goes, "I was a D1 track athlete," and I was like, "Technically, I was a professional athlete because I got paid." And so she gets a little jab on that one. But yeah, that was the last time I competed. So it was like just pre-COVID, pre-2020-ish has been, I think, the last time that I formally competed.
Gotcha.
And so I'm looking to get back into it now that things have kind of sort of leveled out. Still training a ton, so I'm ready to. Maybe I should just hit up Fight to Win and see if I can get on another card here.
Yeah, man. Because it's been challenging trying to find that balance. Because when I get ready to start doing more recordings for the show, you know, I got my month planned out and everything else, and it's like, okay, I got Grappling Industries in April, and I'm completely forgot about it, honestly. Then I checked the email, and it was like, you know, Grappling Industries, blah blah blah, and it's okay. Let me go ahead and sign up for it because I meant to. And I looked at the date. I was like, okay, April 1st. And I looked again. I was like, oh shit, that's next week. So, like I've been just there, like I said, just been so busy with with training and the podcast and work. And I looked at the schedule. I'm like, oh crap, man, this stuff is tomorrow.
Yeah,
but
I'm a
big. So
I train West Side Barbell style for weight training and conditioning, and their philosophy is you should always be ready to compete. I don't know if you've heard of West Side Barbell at all.
No.
Well, anyway, so that's kind of trickled over into my martial arts. Is like, I agree with you. It's nice to be prepared and ready, but at the end of the day, it's like I just if somebody were to hit me up and next week they're like, I got a match or a tournament or whatever, I got to be ready to compete. I'm ready to go. Let's do it.
Yeah. And I told myself, like this time when I realized like how close it was, I was like, dude, I can't do this again. I can't just let that time just slip past me again. So I'm just getting myself ready for this one. And then I think there's another one in I want to say June or July. June. Is another tournament in June. So I'm like, okay, after this tournament, we're gonna make sure we stay on top of our conditioning and really, really training, because trying to shove so much time into like a couple of days, can't do that no more. Especially compete in a brown belt, like you can't do that no more.
Yeah. Do you prefer to compete in the gi or no gi?
I prefer gi, and this tournament will be my first time competing in no gi.
Okay.
So I've been, I fell in love with no gi, just training. And every time I get a chance to, I train no gi because we've been doing gi so much. But I'm just excited to see how it goes, man. Win or lose, I'm just excited to get out there and compete.
You really do learn a lot when you compete. There's still things from my last match that I have been things that I would consider weaknesses that I'm working on.
Mm-hmm.
So going into that match, I probably should have done more of a game plan as far as strategy goes, because I had been, I think you and I had talked about this prior when we first connected. I'm big on self-defense. And so prior to this, I had been doing lots of wrestling classes and lots of takedowns. And so that was my intent, was to show I was going to come in here and get a takedown, be on top, and work it. And the guy I ended up going against was, I believe, a high-level college D1 wrestler. He was out of California, like a Gracie Baja or something out of California. I'd have to go back and look, but came in and I wanted to go like toe to toe with him, and man, he just tossed me around as far as wrestling went, but besides that, there were a couple things that I felt like I needed to improve on from the ground, but for the most part, it turned into him just trying to take me down and then not actually really engaging, and me trying to work. And as soon as I would start to come around the corner to either take his back from the bottom after getting taken down or whatever, he'd just stand up, and then we'd repeat. And then I had a couple, submission attempts and different things. And I was actually trying to do jujitsu and get submissions. And so that's why I ended up winning. But as far as the takedown aspect, it was game plan wise, I guess, I either needed more wrestling or needed to come in with a different idea. So.
Yeah, man, it's I find it weird, like competing. Well, I guess I should say coming up with a game plan, because my instructor, we had a conversation back in January when I did my second tournament, and he was like, "So what's your game plan?" I was like, "Not a clue." like I don't have like a go-to type deal, but I'm like, I just want to go out there and have fun. Like, I'll work what I can, but if I was to try to think of like, okay, I'm gonna try this strategy, I'm gonna try this, I'm going to forget it, and I'm gonna be like, what was I supposed to be doing? And then it's gonna make it worse. I'm like, nope, just go out there and have fun.
Yeah, that's fair. I mean, that's a good way to go about it. Mine, it was the ego thing. I wanted to prove my takedowns had gotten better. I wanted to get on top and dominate. And I knew he was a wrestler, so it was more of a pride thing, because one of my coaches, Elliot Marshall, told me, he's like, pull guard, and I'm just like, no, I'm not. Why would I pull guard?
Speak that blasphemy in me.
I've been working on my takedowns. I'm gonna take this fool down. Nope. That's not how it went. So I tried to do more of like a push and bowl in the china shop, and it didn't work out for me since he knew what he was doing. So, and I wasn't quite there yet.
Yeah, my game plan was like, do better than what you did last time.
I always
like, no, what's up? No, I was. Go ahead.
I always just try to, even if I do well in a match, what things did I do poorly so that I can fix those things, or what things could I have improved upon? And that's where for me, I was so stuck on wrestling. It's like, man, I need to be able to start applying my game from the feet, not just from the ground.
Yeah, like the first tournament I did, God took me down, submitted me quick, and so I was like, okay. Second tournament, I just wanted to go longer. That was like my game plan, like keep myself more calm, and work everything that didn't work last time. It did. The matches did last longer. So I was like, okay, small victory. Still tap. You still got tapped. But I was like, you know what? I'll take that. That.
Hey, that's a victory. That's learning. Yeah. That's a learning process.
Yeah, man. The guys that I competed with was cool guys. One guy, he's actually supposed to have been on an episode, but I had to catch back up with him. But yeah, man, this, the community is always welcoming, and it's fun. The vibes is always good when it comes to jiu-jitsu, especially at tournaments, because everyone's there for the same reason. Go out there, do something we love, and have fun. And yeah, you just meet some of the most awesome people that you're ever going to meet doing jiu-jitsu,
Yeah. And from all walks of life. You can be doing, I mean, it's really true with some of those memes you see where like you can be a cop, you could be a criminal, you could be, it doesn't matter. Like you show up, you put a gi on or no gi, and you just go out and train. And it's like a universal language of grappling, even if it's from different gyms or styles, you can just jump in there and a fairly universal slap and bump and hit it,
Yeah. Cause I remember like when a couple months ago when I cross trained for the first time, and I was more nervous about that than competing, because I'm like, I don't want to go in here, I don't want to be like just run through people, and I don't want to go get my ass kicked either. So I was like, okay, just trying to find a happy medium. But yeah, they're more heavy competition style schools, so a lot of the movements I had to okay, all right, okay, we're doing this, all right, let's go, and just kind of catch up on the fly. But man, it was kind of like one of the best times I've ever had.
And was that cross training at another jiu-jitsu gym or a different style like judo or something?
Oh no, it was another jiu-jitsu gym.
Okay.
Yeah, I haven't jumped in anything else. I thought about it. I was like, well, after black belt, maybe I should pick up like something to like correlate with jiu-jitsu. And I was like, oh, okay, there's judo. but I'm like, do I want to get thrown a lot? I'm like, you know what? Nah, I'm okay.
It's a lot of wear on the body.
I mean, yeah, like jujitsu was enough, from cranks and twists and turns and arm bars and just body being contorted all over the place. And it's like, I'm already doing that. Do I want to get slammed 40, 50 times a day?
Yeah.
Nah.
I tried it for I think a month, and at the time it was more of like a time and a money thing where I'm just like, man, I'm paying for jujitsu. I'm traveling on the weekends for jujitsu. I'm literally only going to make it to your school one time a night. And the guy was like, nope, the rate's the rate. And I was like, all right, bummer. I'd like to keep going and doing it, but it just is what it is. And to be fair, with all the technology, I can find a lot of YouTube videos or somebody who's in the jiu-jitsu gym that did judo who's willing to just show me some stuff and work with me. And sometimes that's almost better anyways, because they're going to show you stuff where it's like, yeah, don't do that because it's not going to get you in a good spot, or here, do this differently because this is what's going to be better for when you're doing a throw or a sweep or whatever. So
right. Because it's not like, obviously, judo is I guess you want to say a big part of jiu-jitsu.
Yep.
They're like, cousins, and it's like, okay, I just need a couple. I don't need a lot of throws. I just need me a couple to get this thing on the ground so I can work my jiu-jitsu. I need this much judo. It's just that much. So
exactly. Do you do any other martial arts? Do you do any striking or anything besides the jiu-jitsu? Or
I've played around with boxing. I've done MMA, but right now it's just been strictly jiu-jitsu. Like we do have a striking, kickboxing program at our school, but I'm thinking maybe like after in a couple months when I get some more free time, I'll probably start hopping in that class. Why not, right?
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
That's when I pretty well did it all together at the same time. I mainly focused on jiu-jitsu, but I did started kickboxing, and then it was Muay Thai, and stuck with that from there, and whatever kind of wrestling takedown classes I could do. But by the time I was about a brown belt, I was like, okay, it's time to just kind of take a little pause on striking and stuff. If I can get in once a week, maybe cool. But if not, the focus is to get my black belt now. As a brown belt, I had set a goal originally when I first started to get a black belt before hitting 10 years. And so I just stuck my head down and went for that. And so it took a little time from that, but since I got back, I've been kind of teaching privates for that as well. So no formal classes there, but I incorporate strikes into my classes because for me, the jiu-jitsu it's self-defense. It should be your first and foremost. And then you can bench to gi, no gi, competition, whatever.
Yeah. But I think it's another reason why I didn't venture out and find another martial art is because I'm so close to black.
Yeah.
It's like, do I want to risk it? I'm like, because even like now, like I got my knees bother me, my ankles bother me, the typical jiu-jitsu stuff, right?
Yeah.
And I'm like, man, I should really go get this checked out. And my, one of my training partners like, dude, just wait till you get your black belt. just wait till you get your black belt, and then you go in and get yourself checked out because you will kill yourself if you have to sit out.
Yep.
I mean, I'll be mad regardless, if a black belt or a brown belt, but it's like, I think it'll hurt more if I was like a brown belt and it's like, yeah, you got to do surgery. You got to take 6 months off. Like, nah.
Yeah.
Tape it up and I'll figure out the rest.
For sure. That's the other beautiful thing, though, is you can stay connected just because of technology and YouTube or BJJ Fanatics videos and all sorts of stuff. When I first started, it was basically 9 months of school, and then I'd come home every summer to work to make money for school. And so I would take 3 months off of jiu-jitsu sort of every year after the semester was over. But I would come home and I was already showing buddies moves then. I was a white belt showing buddies moves. And every summer I was a blue belt showing buddies moves and just practicing and watching YouTube videos and doing mental jujitsu in my head. And my buddy, who's a black belt as well now, I'd come back and he'd always be like, man, you got better. How did you get better? You were gone 3 months. You weren't even in a formal academy. I was like, man, I just still immersed myself in it. I actually have a buddy who's a brown belt under me. He started training before I did, and he's in an area close to me and pretty successful business guy, and he's busy. And I tell him all the time, I'm like, man, take 5 minutes out of your day and watch a video. Just stay absorbed in it and you'll get better. And the thing about it is this is kind of like a Danaher thing that he talks about. Don't just watch the video. Watch the video and think about how you would do the move, how you would react to what they did, and actually put yourself in that picture of in your head. And I think that's why I was able to get better, because it still kept me sharp. Even though I wasn't really doing lots and lots I was still training a little bit, right? But I wasn't getting formal. It was videos and then me showing buddies stuff as a white belt, which you know how that goes.
Yeah. Like I can't count how many times I'll be sitting there watching a jiu-jitsu video and I'll see something and I'm like, I'll call my wife over like, hey, come here. Let me try something. And she's like, you get. I'll call in the room and she's like, what you done found? I'm like, look,
yeah,
just work with me on this one, all right?
Yeah, you probably never cuddle your wife. You just do jujitsu grabs. It's like, oh yeah, I was cuddling you. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, right. We cuddled and it's like,
Yep, exactly. Yep. Exactly. That's the best part, probably. I'm gonna have to say, of me starting my own academy is the last 2 to 3 months. I finally talked my wife into taking my classes.
Hey, let's go.
Yeah, and she was hesitant at first, but after her first class or two, she's like, "This is actually a lot of fun." Because I think a lot of women they don't like that like close ground interaction. With other women, maybe it's okay. With other dudes, it's kind of like, I don't need some random sweaty body around me, And I think she was really starting to enjoy it, and so that gets me pumped. And then the second one, which wouldn't happen regardless of an academy, is my sons both. I mean, well, my one's only 7 months old, but my oldest, 2.5, loves jujitsu.
Nice.
I actually just posted a reel 2 days ago, and we were trying to do YouTube videos for content. And my wife and I were doing stuff, and he was in the pack and play with his brother, and he got on top of his back and was trying to give him a rear naked strangle. And I'm like, he's tapping, get off your brother. And we have to manage that, obviously. But I just tell him, we play, this is for you and daddy. And we kind of let them tumble a little bit and like be on top of each other, and he'll go side control, and he'll go to the mount and he'll take the back. And that's probably my favorite part of everything, is how much he loves doing jiu-jitsu and striking with me. And his brother. Yeah. And I'm sure as his brother gets a little more mobile, he'll like doing it because he'll have to defend himself.
Yeah, because he gonna be the Uki for a while, man. So it's only gonna make him better much faster.
For sure. And so that's where, man, my heart really lights up, is when I get to do that stuff with my son. And when they're 2, you can't be like, okay, we're going to do bridges. We do bridges, and he'll do like 3 bridges and he'll count with me. We'll practice our counting, right? And we'll do our bridges. And then it's like, okay, Dad, it's time to be a horse. And I'll be like, okay, take my back, right? And then it'll be done with that. And it's like, okay, let's shoot hoops. And it's like, all right, I'll take what I can get. And then one day I'll be laying on the floor talking to my wife, and he'll jump on me, side control. And then it's on. And that lasts for like 30 seconds to a minute. And then it's like, okay, I'm going to go build my blocks again or play with my truck.
I know, right?
And so that's really had to make me focus in, because I want him to do that. So I'm sure you're kind of the same where you're busy, where it's like, oh no, I got to do some stuff. It's like, okay, he'll only have a 1 minute span. I'll take my break from what I'm doing, and I'm just going to do jiu-jitsu with you. You're into it. I'm into it. Let's go.
Like when I tell you, when it comes to jiu-jitsu, like my daughter is like my biggest fan because
That's awesome.
she trains, and there the times I'll link up with somebody on the like on Friday. I've been doing this for the last couple of weeks. She'll come to me like, Daddy, are you going to the gym Friday? I'm like, I don't know why, because I want to go.
Yes.
And I'd be like, all right, fine. And then later on that day, are we doing open mat Sunday? Yeah. Okay, let me go set my alarm because I want to go. So it's like,
that's awesome.
yeah. I'm trying to get her into like rolling, trying to get out, like it's just trying to get her to understand like the serious aspect of it. So it's like, okay, it's fun to play around, but sometimes you gotta be serious. So we kind of had that moment today where she was, like the other kids were kind of like horsing around, and she started horsing around. And after class, I kind of had that conversation with her. She didn't understand, like, what happened. I'm like, no, you should know, like, we don't play around during class time. Like, it's a time to be serious, it's time to play. So she just, it was a valuable lesson learned today for sure.
Yeah, that is so awesome. Biggest fan. I hope that's how my son is for me too. Because
it's such a warming feeling, man.
It is.
So yeah, she definitely, like, she even got like we got not logos, but hoodies of the logo for the podcast. She wears it every day. So it's like, she's like, I want to be on the episode too. I'm like, all right, we'll figure something out.
Yeah, for sure. You gotta at least give her like 15 minutes or something. I'm gonna do a quick little blurb with you, and we're gonna do a little jiu-jitsu podcast.
Cause what's funny, like, cause everyone at the school talks about the podcast, and she's like, oh, I want to be on it. I said, you are on it, and she's like, no, I'm not. I'm like, yes, you are. And she's like, no. I'm like, yes, because you are in the intro. Like, every intro, is her voice saying, you're now listening to Talk Your Jits podcast. And I'm like, obviously that's you, because you were sitting here recording it. So I was like, so everyone hears your voice first before they hear anything else.
Nice.
And it just got to her head, like, I want to do a whole episode now. So I was like, all right.
Yes, and one day when this podcast is blown up like a Joe Rogan, she'll be your co-host, and you guys can be talking to all sorts of people from all over the world. Man,
that's the goal, man. Just traveling and doing jiu-jitsu with my daughter and my wife and family rather. Oh man, that's the goal right there, man.
Yeah, it's the best thing. Kids just, they change. That's partly why we moved back. So during COVID, my wife was pregnant, and it was between, we can stay out here, and I think if she wasn't, we would have, and then we can move back to our hometown and be a little closer to my mom, her parents, her grandparents, have some help, be a little less in a big metro city. And that, it wasn't the choice I wanted, but it was probably the choice that our family needed. And so you do a lot of stuff for your kids,
Sacrifices, man.
Yeah. And when they love it, when they're passionate about something you're passionate about, it just makes it that much easier to love it and to do it.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Because her love for jiu-jitsu, I'm like, okay, I'm trying to gauge it. Like, is it just because daddy does it, so you do it? But seeing her retain this stuff is like the rewarding thing, because she's like, oh, daddy, can we work this today? And can we work like today? She's like, can we do no-gi today? And I'm like, all right, we can do no-gi today. So
yeah. Does she have a favorite technique?
Drop Serenagi.
Oh, okay.
I know, right? I showed her that one time, and it's just every time we go, it's so crazy how good at it she is. Obviously, she's not necessarily throwing me because I'm a lot bigger, but yeah, she turns, grab the arm, drops the knees, drop her forehead down, and I'm like, I can't ask for anything better, Yeah. Like, it's
you better go over. If she does that, you better be going head over.
Oh man, I am Steven Seagal in it, man. I am flying on.
Yes, absolutely. You got to play into it. You got to let them be successful, and they'll love it more.
Like, when we work takedowns, double leg, single leg, she does her, Nagi, like I go. I'm selling it, man. I'm selling it like, season tickets. So
Yes, absolutely.
yeah,
My son gets the
got
whole
you.
gambit. He gets the jiu-jitsu, the wrestling, he does the takedowns, he gets the striking. We do all sorts of striking. The first thing he tried to do to his baby brother when his brother was born, so we had a home birth for our second one.
Oh,
And the
okay.
first thing he tried to do when he got to meet his brother, he's like, headbutt. And he taps him on the head. And I'm like, okay, buddy, we got to be nice together. So that's already the dynamic in our house, in a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old. So needless to say, it's a good thing my wife is very, understanding and goes with it. And we take, a lot of it's like, okay, you only play like that with daddy is mostly what we stick with. But man, yeah, he'll throw elbows and kicks and headbutts and he loves doing every minute of it. So
It's all gonna be a surprise when baby bro starts striking back.
yeah, exactly. Exactly. For sure. So do you have a favorite jiu-jitsu technique? What's your jam?
Oh man. Right now, my favorite thing that I've been working is I've been playing like a lot of half guard, bottom half guard, working to get that back take or work to get that gift wrap sweep, because we got a lot of thick big guys at our school. So when you get under them, you're kind of there. So you kind of have to learn, to live in the misery. So I'm like, okay, if I'm gonna be here, man, I gotta learn to work something. But that's been kind of like my go-to thing I've been working a lot lately.
Cool.
What about you?
I'm gonna go kind of over time. So when I first started as like a white into purple belt, my jam was like the Kimura and just about anything that was Kimura involved. And then after a while, I for some reason got in my head and thought, I'm too good at this. I got to start working on something else. So I went away from that jam. And lately my favorite, and it's super generic, is the rear naked strangle. Like,
oh, of course.
I just effective and efficient. I want something that I always tell my buddy that I wanna be so good that I get on somebody's back and there's nothing they can do. They're just gonna get strangled. World champion, it doesn't matter. I'm just like, I will get to your back and I'm gonna strangle you and there's nothing you can do about it. Man. And I think that's kind of been my focus and goal. And I've deviated from that a little bit because I've been playing with that for quite a while. Now I'm starting to kind of go other routes from there, but that's been a big focus of mine.
Nice.
Outside of the self-defense, that's always been like self-defense is like my mainstay of things. But the rear, it's really plain Jane. I don't do. If I were to say it's something about my jiu-jitsu, it's not super fancy. It's work on positionally dominating somebody until I get to a spot where I can basically rear naked strangle them. That's
it.
Yeah,
that's about it. If I take your back, you're getting choked.
Yeah,
that's just how it is. But yeah, I'm the same way. We have like old school smashed out jiu-jitsu. I'm not, diving under Imanari rolls or anything like that. Like, nope.
They're fun to play with. It's one of those like, yeah, I want to change it up for a day. I'll go do something. But
yeah,
on the big scheme of focus, like, and this is where you kind of go down routes of things that have happened in jiu-jitsu, but my opinion of it is, if you are a black belt and you get in a street fight and you can't take somebody down and you get beat up, it's going to be real silly. And so I think that should be the focus for most people, and then deviation from there to be good competitors and stuff. Like, I like to apply a lot of what happens high level. So some of my philosophy, like Ronda Rousey, she was hip throwing everybody. And I was like, but you're giving up your back, and that's a really dangerous precedence. And she is a high-level judo Olympian. And what happened? She got dethroned because somebody did what they were supposed to, and they got behind her. And then it went south from there really quick. And if a judo Olympian blew that move, is that fundamentally sound? for fighting, like at least for fighting, right? And MMA is different than self-defense in the street, but it's as close as you're going to get to seeing a rule set. And then you see it with guys like Ryan Hall and like Gary Tonin, where they're doing really good in their matches. They're definitely getting down and heel hooking people. And then the right guy punches them in the head and sprawls how he's supposed to. And then they lose. And
jiu-jitsu go out the window.
Yep. And so, again, not that I'm not saying don't have those things in your toolbox, but are those from a fighting standpoint your best avenue to go? And I think if your jiu-jitsu can't come back that direction, if you've gone so berimbolo-y and worm guard and I'm only leg locking people, like I think that's a dangerous game to play and not have anything beyond that. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah, no, for sure. Because self-defense is a big part of our curriculum. It's a part of our testing. Like you have to be able to defend yourself against strikers because our philosophy, well, one of the many philosophies that we follow is if you can't do this in the gym, you can't do this in the street. Yeah. You practice here, you practice how you fight. So we play from all positions. If someone got you on top, got you mounted and you're in guard, side control, turtle, and we work out of that. We start in a position, they throw gloves on. Someone says go, they're throwing punches. You have to use jiu-jitsu to get out.
Yep. It's a martial art. And people, I think, have kind of lost some of the martial part of it. And the art, they're creative. There's so many things. I mean, I see stuff where I'm like, wow, I would have never thought to rotate or twist or do that or spin under. Like the art is beautiful, but man, some of the martial part. And you see it. You've seen it. I don't watch it, but one of my students was talking about like slap jiu-jitsu or slap fighting or whatever it's called.
You talking about
combat jiu-jitsu? Combat jiu-jitsu, where you can like slap. Sorry, not slap fighting, but that's basically what I call it, slap fighting. You know? But man, that changes the game. It changes what's going on in the dynamics. So if just something as simple as slapping people is having that kind of impact, think if somebody's punching you.
Yeah, exactly. Because you've seen you've seen high level competitors compete in combat jiu-jitsu and they get slapped once, they're curling like a ball.
Yeah,
because you not used to it. You thinking like, okay, if I can get it down to the ground quick and whatever, but no, once it's get to the ground, you can throw hands. Open strikes the whole time. So
headbutts. I mean, stuff you don't really talk about in a lot of gyms. And I'm not saying that you need to be trained in headbutts, but having an idea and being prepared of if that were to happen, or how do I deal with this? I can be on your back digging a choke and just sitting here and somebody can whip a head back and smash you right in the face. Well, a lot of good that did. So
you can't stop, you can't be angry. You kind of have to just suck it up and keep going.
Yeah. And so when I was training with the MMA team, with Elevation Fight Team in Denver, my transition there was actually really easy. Because that's how I always do my jiu-jitsu. I was never the guy who was like, I'm going to just play a real gamey. It was always, okay, I get here. Can they hit me? Can they punch me in the face? Can they elbow me? Do I have control of them? And so transitioning to training with the MMA team is just simple, super simple. Because now it was just, they can actually swing at me. And what I was doing was working. So great.
Right. Gotcha. Yeah. Self-defense is a big part of, jiu-jitsu, Brazilian jiu-jitsu, more so anything, but self-defense is definitely up there. So Joey, we got to talk your Jits podcast question, man. Your top 3 people, who would you like to roll with?
All right.
Yeah. Who's your top 3?
I'm greedy. So Gordon Ryan would be on there. Currently or just anybody?
Anybody.
Darn. I wish I could have prepared for this one. Gordon Ryan would probably be on there, right? I think Hickson Gracie would be on there. And probably like either a Hodger Gracie or a Henzo or a GSP. Those three would kind of be tied. Just
GSP would be something.
That'd be super cool.
Yeah, a lot of people I ask that question are like, Gordon Ryan, Henzo Gracie are like the top two I've heard so far.
Okay. Yeah.
Like, all right, well, everyone wants to go for the throne. I feel it. I get it.
Well, you want to see where you compare and where you stand up. I unfortunately, even though he's part of my lineage, I haven't got to train or meet Henzo yet, but I know I will someday. Hopefully soon. But I've got to train with lots of high level athletes being in the Denver area. So it's cool. I guess the thing for me at this point is I want to learn from some of those guys. I mean, training with them would be good too, right? To test some stuff out. But for the most part, like at this point, besides if I were going to just do actual competition and not just a training session, I'd realistically, guys I'd like to still go see or train or do a seminar from are like a John Danaher, a Henry Akins. Those two, if I were to say, as far as videos and influential, especially lately, are probably my two biggest ones. And I'm sure Danaher is for most people, right? I mean,
yeah.
Right?
It's funny. Like I was telling my wife about John Danaher, and I was like, I'm gonna show you a video, and I'm gonna ask you, is he excited or is he sad or what? And she's listening. She's like, I don't know. I was like, that's the point. No one knows.
Yeah.
I was like, that monotone talk is how he is no matter what, man.
Yeah.
It's hilarious. It's so hilarious.
Yeah. When I actually did go out to Henzo's in New York, and he unfortunately, Gary Tonin was fighting in like Singapore or something. And so I didn't get to train. And then we went out there for a wedding for a buddy. And there was a class, and then there was the no-gi class. And I was like, I should probably go to the no-gi class, but the gi class was an hour earlier, and we had to get out to Long Island. And man, I'm still kicking myself because I was just getting done with gi class, and I look in there, and there's Jake Shields, and I'm sure a bunch of the other guys that I didn't even catch. And I was like, man, I could have met Jake Shields. How cool would that have been? Just another person to. I mean, I've gotten to train with like Lovato and his dad, Lovato Senior, and
okay.
That man, they were super welcoming. And this is where like the jiu-jitsu community as a whole is so awesome. I got to do a Janji seminar because I was visiting for work in Oklahoma City, went to Lovato's gym, was training, and they had a seminar. And I was just like, hey, would it be okay if I come? And usually they told me, typically they say no because you're not from the school, but they're like, you know what? Yeah, you're cool. And so I was like, sweet, I got to go to a Janji seminar while I was traveling, and it was completely impromptu. So,
that's awesome.
That's the type of community that's just so crazy wonderful within the jiu-jitsu world.
For sure, man. Definitely a welcoming community. Community.
Yeah. Is there anybody on your list of like who's your top person you'd like to go see or train with, or seminar from?
I mean, anybody. Like, if we're talking just train with, like, I would love to train with, like I was saying, like, people like Khabib Nurmagomedov, because his pressure passing is just, one of the, obviously one of the best. People like, Andre Galval, Damian Maia, Brandon Ortega, just a lot of the really technical guys, like the sneaky technical guys. I would love to roll with. Obviously, Gordon Ryan, Danaher, anybody from the Danaher Hit Squad or B Team or anybody of the sort. Like, yeah, I don't care who you are. Like, if you know jiu-jitsu, you can teach me something. I want to learn it.
Sure.
But those are definitely my top people.
That's on my list for travels, is to get to Austin, Texas. I'd like to go to New Wave, and I'd like to get to B Team so I can kind of get a little the flavor of both, and then at some point get back out to New York City just to hopefully catch Henzo at some point.
Like, I don't care if I get washed, like slap bump, and I'm passed out. I don't care. Just get me on the mats with these people,
Yeah. Well, you're gonna get better, and that's the important part.
Oh yeah, and I would say that's the important part. You're gonna get better.
Yeah, I actually have a seminar in June, middle of June. I'm going to the Machado Brothers seminar in Dallas, Texas.
That should be fun.
Yeah, I went last year, so it was the first time they'd done it in like 10 years. And so I was like, just for the history of it, I'm going to get a picture with the 5 Machado brothers. And I got a buddy. He's the one who actually kind of pushed after I mentioned it. He's like, well, let's just go. I was like, all right, let's do it. So we went. And then we signed up again this year, and we're bringing 5 other people with us. And so
Nice.
We'll go back, get some. I mean, it's that small world, small community of stuff. I have my instructor from Fargo, one of his mentors, and I think for Amal as well, was Helio Seneca. I don't know if you're familiar, but anyways, I'm sitting there. I'm kind of watching the Machado brothers at a table at the hotel room, and I see him pull up on a FaceTime. And who do I see on the FaceTime? Helio Seneca. It's just another one of those like intertwining things that it's, again, small world of jiu-jitsu.
Small, yeah. And it's funny, we had a moment like that too. My guest who had on earlier today, he's affiliate black belt, and we're talking about our I guess their instructor, Master Joe Mawera, and we're just like, he does seminars and blah blah blah, yada yada yada. And I talked to my instructor, and I was telling him like, yeah, I did a episode with James, and we were just talking about this and that. And he was like, he said, you remember when Joe was here last year? He did that online seminar for people in Australia. I was like, yeah. He was like, that was his school. I was like, oh no shit. Like yeah, because he mentioned like, yeah, there's been times where Joe would do a seminar over Zoom or something like that. And I remember him setting up to do a seminar in our school for one of his affiliate schools in Australia. So I was like, dang man, we met and didn't even realize it.
Yeah, it's crazy. The paths that tend to cross so some of the other things that have kind of influenced my life through jiu-jitsu is I got into dog training.
Okay.
And so was I a brown belt by this point? I don't remember. So I had a black belt instructor. He was the GM for the Denver school, and he had his dog at the school one day, and we just started talking. And I asked if I could pet his dog, which in Denver, Colorado, man, people just think they can just come up and pet your dogs and do whatever. And I was like, hey, is it okay if I pet your dog? He's like, yeah, that's awesome. Like, I'm super like impressed that you asked. And I was like, thanks, and I told him about how I always wanted a German Shepherd and that someday I'd like to get one. And he goes, do you want a puppy? And I was like, what do you mean? Do I want a puppy? He's like, my parents are having German Shepherd puppies. And I went, yeah, I'll take a puppy. I was like, yeah, sure. Give me a free puppy. And I went and did some research. I didn't know how much they cost, none of that stuff. And I didn't think anything of it. Right. I was like, he's not going to, I looked it up and I was like, oh yeah, I see how much these cost. He's not giving me a free puppy, and I come back a week later to train, and he's like, you still want a puppy? And I was like, yeah. So within the jiu-jitsu community, I got into dog training, which also has affected my jiu-jitsu because it has taught me how important communication is. And so it's crazy to find other people that in the jiu-jitsu community that are also very into dog training. So Amal Easton's first black belt is actually very famous for dog training. His name's J-Jack. If you want to talk about a dude who's talks about self-defense and who's like into fighting and some crazy stories, check him out. There's some crazy stuff about him, but yeah, come to find out he's like very world renowned for dog training. And I think it's the learning process. So jiu-jitsu, where I'm going with this for the dog training, is you develop this ability to learn new skills because you're not just learning a move. Or maybe you start it like that, you learn a move, but then it turns into you learn a process and you learn a system of putting the process together. And that's exactly what everything has been since then with the dog training and everything. So long story short, that's how I got into dog training. I got my best friend. I got a German Shepherd, and I bought another German Shepherd, and I've started training dogs for people. That's another one of my side businesses where I've been doing that professionally.
That's awesome.
With people. And man, the psychology and the communication of dog training, it's impressive what that will transfer over between jiu-jitsu and the training. So
yeah, man, because jiu-jitsu definitely teaches you a lot of patience. So you're just incorporating that into everything else now.
Structured learning, bodily awareness, coordination. I mean, the amount of benefits that people like put on their posts for, hey, it'll get you fit and you'll lose weight and this and that. The ones that are super true for everybody is, man, it will give you a level of understanding and confidence and bodily awareness and a family, whether people like to hear that. Some people see family and they start thinking like culty and random stuff, which I'm sure happens in the jiu-jitsu community, but it,
Yeah.
it really is a life-changing group of people
Yeah.
that are open and willing to learn. And that's, I think, especially in this world, I think that's a huge thing nowadays, is people that are willing to like ask questions and learn from each other. Because I don't think a lot of people are open to that, sadly.
Nah, not at all. Yeah, I would say sadly, yeah, but yeah, I tell people a lot. Like they ask about why I get into jujitsu, and it's like yeah, I've lost weight, I've gotten healthier, but mental, the mental stability I've gained just by doing jujitsu alone is worth everything, everything to me.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, you can take out the fitness, you can take out whatever, but just how much it helped me mentally is just top notch, man.
Absolutely. And I think it
For
does
sure,
that for a
man.
lot of people. It really does build a level of, I almost call it stages. You have that stage where you're almost kind of coming in like the potential victim or the bullied, and you kind of get this competence to you where you almost have a chip on your shoulder, and now you kind of become almost a bully
Mm-hmm.
to an extent. And then you get a little bit further and you're like, man, it doesn't matter anymore. Like I don't even care, because now you're on the flip side where you're like trying the bullies from bullying. And I think that's an amazing portion of the path, because I've actually been looking at writing a book for it, to where you just go from, I call it like the sheep, the wolf, and then you turn into the shepherd, like the shepherd dog,
Yeah.
right? And you see that a lot. And sad, I mean,
Mm-hmm.
some people kind of stay in that wolf phase, and that's where you get those real sketchy gyms sometimes. But like a lot of people turn into like just this calm shepherd that is willing to watch over other people, you know?
Yeah. And I think I'm slowly getting there because I like I said, I love teaching. I love seeing everyone just grow and flourish in this sport that we love so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, good deal. Good deal. So is there anything else, man? If you got, anything coming up for you, yourself, your school, man, if you want to give shout outs to anybody, man, the floor is all yours.
Well, first off, I'll just give you a shout out. I really appreciate you having me on the podcast. This is great, and if you'd have me, I would definitely jump back on it another time. There's always more stuff we can talk about for sure.
Of
Uh,
course.
Big shout out to all the people that have influenced my jujitsu along the way. My initial mentor, who's now a student, Warren Wiedrick, and then George Anders was my original formal academy instructor, and then Amal Easton is my current instructor that I'm under, that I got my black belt from. And my biggest mentor through Easton was actually Foster Bailey. He's been a huge mentor and coach for me, and then Elliot Marshall has been another one through Easton. And I mean, there's almost too many to name. You know how that goes. You learn
Yeah.
so many people over the years, but uh, I'm just super thankful for the community and for all that jiu-jitsu's done. And I really hope this starts becoming more of a mainstream thing that gets into like school systems and
Yeah,
gets into like
yes.
police departments. And I really think it could change the type of culture that we see. I think for those that are struggling, whether they're getting bullied or whether, I mean, there's all sorts of different scenarios you could just talk about, but bullying, or whether you got police officers that need to have competence. I really think the respect of the art, the respect for the effectiveness of what you can do once you have the skill set, along uh, with that within like departments and schools that meshes together for people to have confidence, right? I think some of that is just there'd be more people respecting one another in that capacity. Not just because of learning respect through the martial art, but also just respecting the fact that, more people might know it, and more people will stand up for other people. I always tell my wife, within my life, I don't have a lot of regrets. I've made mistakes, I've done stuff, but my biggest regret was kind of that high school stage where either you were kind of the person that got bullied or you went along with everybody that was bullying somebody else. And the only thing I regret was not standing up for somebody else and just saying, hey, like, leave them alone.
Yes.
Right? Because if I would have just said, leave them alone, I was potentially the target,
Yeah.
And now when where I'm at in life, it's like, I'll just be like, enough, leave them alone. What's the problem? Right. And I wish more people would do that. I think it would change the atmosphere, and especially in schools, like high school, because realistically in high school, it's kind of like you're either the bully or you're getting bullied, or maybe you have some kids outside of that. But sometimes, man, if there would have that would be my one thing I'd go back for. I would just leave them alone.
I'm telling you, I done seen some people get bullied for just no apparent reason, and like you said, it's like that's the only regret that I really have is like not being able to stand up for somebody, because it's like,
yep,
if I know, I'm like, okay, if I know I say something, I'm going to get my ass kicked.
Yeah, you're going to get pulled into it.
Yeah, I'm going to get pulled into it. It's like I rather that not happen, but damn, type deal.
Yeah, and so that's kind of been my thing ever since then. I've since gone back and apologized to those people that I was like, man, I was kind of the bully to you because I was trying not to be the target. So I apologize. And I just make sure that I stand up for those that I can around me, and hopefully try to encourage others, especially in the school system, to start, because it's popular and it's what everybody else is doing, and everybody else is picking on them or whatever. Like, because it's cool. It's like, no, it's not cool. Just treat them with kindness and dignity and let them, if you don't like them, it's really easy. Just leave them alone. Big deal.
Just leave them alone. Just walk away.
Yeah. So
good deal, my friend. Good deal. But
at some point, I'd like to come out and see you in Detroit. If there's an open offer, I'd love to swing out on my jiu-jitsu journeys and come train with you. So
come on, bro. Dude, open arms, man. Just, whenever you're, in the Detroit area, please let me know, dude. We'll, even if we don't have a class, we can get some work in for sure.
Sounds good.
Yeah, definitely sounds good. But that's the end of today's episode. I would like to thank Joey one more time for coming on and sharing his jiu-jitsu wisdom with us. Hope you guys gained from our tales. Please go and follow our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube channels to stay up to date on all future episodes. This has been Talk Your Jits podcast. Keep rolling, keep grinding, and remember, long live jiu-jitsu. Have a great day. And we're